while I was resting. Greetings and welcome to another episode of While I Was Resting. And this week we've got the guest Alexis Dubus. Welcome, Alexis.
Hello. I like how you're saying welcome, but you're in my house.
Well, yes, and welcome to the podcast, I should say.
Yes, welcome to my house.
Oh, well, my phone made a noise.
This is a cracking start.
That's a good start, isn't it?
Yeah.
That should be on silent. There we go. But I'm going to put it on airplane mode so we don't get... There we go. That's
Right.
good. Right, we're rocking. So, Alexis, welcome to While I Was Resting.
Thanks.
The podcast in which we chat about all the various things that people do between jobs, between the kind of jobs in the chosen path in life. So before we get cracking on that, I always like to ask people who they are, to introduce themselves to the listeners out there, all two of them. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, both of you.
I'm Alexis. I do comedy. I've done a bit of acting. My main bread and butter is, I suppose, I pretend to be a Frenchman. I have an alter ego, Marcel Lugon, who... it was a thing that started off as a bit of an experiment and then became pretty much my sort of
your kind of career, really,
way of living.
Yeah.
So I play the comedy circuit, the cabaret circuit, and I found myself now just sort of going all over the world, insulting people for money.
But Marcel's been going for a while now, hasn't he?
10 years.
10 years. I remember when he started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just did my 10th year in Edinburgh, at Edinburgh Fringe, which was great. I had a live band. I had sort of Les Mis type banners. It was all sort of Marcel's narcissistic 10-year celebration of Marcel. And what a lot of fun it was.
And just going back before we get onto the other stuff, because I've always been curious about what made you come up with the Marcel Lucont character.
Well, I was running a little club, comedy club in London Bridge, which I believe you attended several times. It was the...
at Belushi's.
Down at Belushi's.
Yes.
Still there if you want to look for it.
Okay.
It's on Borough High Street, and it's... it was a little room beneath the backpackers hostel in Borough, and it could fit about... We could squeeze 70 people into it, which we frequently did. We started to get... it started off in 2003, and it was me and Cy Thomas set it up. We just moved to the area, and we just wanted to sort of hone our skills and get a little bit of stage time. So we set up this club, and it just sort of rocketed, really. It just escalated. I guess because we got really big names in there, but and people were like, how'd you get these names? How'd you get that?
I remember Jack D down and people like that.
Russell Brand came down and did it
right.
quite a number of times when he was sort of just getting back into it. And who do we have? We had Lenny Henry down there. We had Stephen Merchant.
A lot of people used to come and try out new stuff, didn't they?
That's
it was
right.
A smaller venue.
Stuart Lee. I remember our first big one was Stuart Lee. That was amazing because we had Stuart Lee, Trevor Locke, and Kevin Eldon.
Wow.
And it was incredible. And people was like, how do you get all these accents? Like, well, we just asked.
Yeah.
That was it. And it sort of got a reputation for just being a lovely little comedy joint. And we ran it for 7 years. And we started doing... I really wanted to do something a bit different to stand-up. I ran an experimental night down there. I thought, let's see how this goes. And just got all the... Because there seemed to be like a lot more brilliant weird acts going on. And it was like... Angelo Sepethemiou, Tim Key, and sort of that weren't quite in the mould of stand-up, so we were sort of putting those on, and I figured, because the rule of that one was no straight stand-up, so I just figured, I should probably host this as a character, so I did. So I found an old an old suit of mine, a blue suit that I had from sixth form, and a roll neck jumper that I had used for some sketch thing or other. Can't remember what, that I never really used, and put them together, put an attitude on, got a Mardy attitude, and just did it as this French guy that couldn't be asked about the whole thing and didn't care who the acts were, and it just had this like ennui about it, I suppose, and it just sort of really worked. And then so I was a regular host as Marcel. Then I gave him a surname, gave him some material, and took him out, and the rest is history,
as they say. Well, going back over a little history, of course, I've done many a stupid job with you over the years.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of
and I believe like many people on the show, you've been compiling a little list of some stuff you've done.
Yeah.
Where to start?
Well, let's see. I'm going to start sort of pre-performing days, if I may, because it gives a little taster of sort of my placing one foot into the realm of stupid jobs. And I I suppose I was at university. I was at University of Warwick, and I was studying philosophy and psychology, and I sort of, it soon became quite evident that neither of those were going to be a career path for me, and I got into the acting side of things, and I was doing a lot of plays, doing a lot of student cabaret stuff, and the comedy as well. That's where I first started in comedy with a little sketch group that we formed there. But anyway, so it was sort of soon quite obvious that I was going to be, that hopefully after uni, that's what I'd be going into, some sort of performing. I never had the money for acting school or anything like that, so that was never an option. It was kind of just hit and hope, really. I was like, oh well, I think I've picked up some life skills here on the stage. Anyway, so to earn a bit of money at university, whereas some people got bar jobs, some people got kind of office work, and I did do a little bit of that myself, but quite early on, my hallmate's cousin came in, who was a basketballer, a guy called Wes, who was lovely, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's a fun old week. We're looking for a mascot for the basketball team."
Oh, brilliant! Classic.
Attila the gorilla. So someone that we can just put in a monkey suit, and send off when we're playing opposing teams to rile the opposition and to be a dickhead with a big inflatable banana. Actually,
what a brief.
Anyway, what a brief. And I went, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And I was hired on the spot. There were no auditions required. I went, oh, all right. Yeah, you could do that. And I say big inflatable banana. I bought that myself. That was out of my own pocket. It's good to have a prop. And that's what I did for a couple of years at uni. Actually, I was paid to be Attila the gorilla, and just
a regular gig,
and I even went on tour with them. I remember we went to the Isle of Man, and it was quite ridiculous, because it was kind of, as most sporty societies are at university, it wasn't sort of that laddie. It wasn't like a football or a rugby one, but it was it was quite ridiculous. There was so many drinking games and I just remember, like, there was a time being on the ferry going over to the Isle of Man, and they went, put on the monkey suit. Go on, put on the monkey suit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, no, I'm not getting paid for this, but come on, I'll do out of hours monkeying. You've been very good to me, and I put the monkey suit on, and it just turned into carnage. There was this ferry sort of going to the Isle of Man with all manner. There was a big tournament there with lots of other university teams of every description, all sorts of sports teams, on this ferry that I swore was going to sink at several times. It was just chaos. And yeah, I remember just getting piled on by about 5 or 6 rugby playing women who were not weak.
No.
And I think that's the closest I've come to death. Genuinely. I remember just being piled on by these women and just feeling all of the air leaving my lungs. And sort of, I'm there like a wrestler tapping out on the ground.
Yeah.
With a monkey mask on, so no one no one could even hear my plaintive wails. And I thought, oh God, is this it?
That's the thing. I've talked to other people on the show before who've done mascot work, and it's that thing that people forget there's a person inside.
Oh God, it's
they just see the character and think it's indestructible.
That's it.
Yeah.
But that was terrifaying. And so anyway, that was towards the end of my Attila the gorilla career. That's not why I left the game.
No, did you not sort of think at that point, oh, maybe I need to, move on from this?
Probably because I had to start doing some studying.
Yeah.
Get a degree. Took over my life. No, it was that was my first sort of, I suppose, foray.
Yeah.
Into
the world of strange
stupid jobs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of set me up. Yeah, I'd go and just sort of taunt the opposition, get them riled up, and get the home supporters. So I suppose you can kind of. It's sort of a metaphor for what I do now. Frenchmen going into British comedy clubs and taking the piss out of Britain. So there you go. So it's a cruder version of what I do now. Some would say.
Yeah, but I guess back then you were doing it all via the medium of mime.
It was very much mime. Yeah. Usually sordid mimes performed by a gorilla. With the banana, yeah. Oh, you can use your imagination.
Yes, indeed.
So that was the sort of start of that. And then I moved back to my folks for year and a half to just try and get a bit of money together and just work out what the hell I was doing and wait for Si Thomas to finish his uni. He was a year,
of course, yeah,
after me, and our plan was then to try and move to the big London and do our thing. So I sort of did a few. I was an extra for a bit. I did quite a lot of extra work.
All right.
On various things, and I was in the first ever the pilot for Garth Marenghi.
Oh, that place.
It was called Netherhead, the original
really?
one.
The original, right.
And it was because it was based on their Edinburgh show, which is still one of the best Edinburgh shows I've ever seen. And so that was great. Noel Fielding was actually in the pilot, and Julian Barrett, I think, as well. But anyway, so yeah, it was really, really fun. I don't know if that's ever seen the light of day. I wonder if that's in the DVD extras of. I
don't know, because a lot of extra work can be really, really dull.
Oh, really dull. You
just spent hours just sitting around waiting for things to happen.
Yeah, but I remember you'd just meet some really interesting characters.
Yes, you would, yeah.
There'd be sort of the old folk who were just doing it to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Who were lovely. You'd get the real sort of straight out of drama school lovies who would be really clamouring for that feature role.
Yeah, they'd always be trying to edge themselves.
That's it.
Sidle up to the big stars so they might get spotted.
That's
given
it.
a line.
And it was always a joy to then watch the scene and watch how you can basically see their knees in, like, you know, or their sort of, I don't know, they've clamoured for this to get closer, and they've just been cut out of it completely. I remember the worst ones we had to do. Oh, what was it? Well, there was a lot of clubbing scenes. I remember in one, but so they would give you. You'd have to be drinking lager. This was the 90s after all. No,
lager.
Yeah, that's it. You'd have to be drinking lager, but of course they would all be non-alcoholic.
Yeah,
lager, obviously. He was shooting at 6 a.m. doing these club scenes, and it would be take after take after take. I just remember just going for a piss so many times during those takes. You're just drinking this awful non-alcoholic lager and then having to dash it, like, you know, in this club scene with about 100 extras, and then obviously no one's synchronising their pissing. It took forever because everyone's just toddling off to the toilet. I mean, you could argue we could have just been acting drinking, but you know, where's the fun in that?
Absolutely. Were you having to dance to no music?
Yes, which is hilarious. So these huge club scenes where everyone's just going. It's really odd. And then there was a long running series called, oh god, I keep wanting to say Sensible Soccer, but that is a video game from the 90s.
Oh god, it is,
which was great. What was it called? Balls. I can't remember what it's called.
Was it football related?
It's football related, and it was a weird concept where they would. It was a soap, really. It was a football soap where they would then CGI. And bear in mind, CGI was not great back then. They would CGI the actors onto real footballers in real football matches. So they would be the drama, but then you would see them playing a bit. But it was like them.
Right,
superimposed
on actual footballers.
And I had to, and actually, it was just around the corner from where we are now recording. We're in Bermondsey, and it was filmed at Millwall. And I was living in Buckinghamshire at the time, and I had to get like the early train, and it was still dark, and I was walking around Bermondsey, which is still a bit of a hairy place to be walking around. And I remember just being absolutely terrified with my little. I suppose I didn't have a mobile phone back then, which is a good and a bad thing. I couldn't have been mugged for it, but at the same time,
nobody to call.
I had my little my shitty little map printed out. Yeah. Going, oh god, I think I've got to go under this dodgy bridge and through this horrible underpass, and had to get to, really, really quite scary. I remember doing those ones, and I did quite a lot of that. And then also I was kind of doing just kitchen work and pub work and that sort of thing. And there were two sort of memorable ones there. The first was I was working in the Royal Standard of England in Beaconsfield or around there, and that is the pub that they used in Hot Fuzz for the shootout.
Really?
Yeah,
right, okay.
And it had this claim of being, as so many do, the oldest standing pub in Britain, and what that meant was there was like an original beam from it, and the rest was completely...
a bit of wood that they've preserved.
Yeah, and the rest was all false oldie worldy. But it was lovely, actually, really nice, and that was quite fun. There was I remember Yeah, a lot of interesting characters coming in there as well. Sort of actually reminded me of sort of doing the extra work of all
Was
these...
it very much a locals place?
Well, you had to drive through this almost like a maze, I suppose. You had to drive around these sort of windy country roads to get to it. So it was really, really tucked away. So you did have very regular locals. Yeah, there were these two old guys that I remember who were sort of ex-teachers who there was a bottle of gin wine behind the bar only for them. No one else drank the stuff. Nasty. And they would sit there just having glass after glass of ginger wine and trying to out-clever each other. It was like a two-man pub quiz.
Right.
It was great where they would just throw obscure questions at each other and see if they could answer it. It was fascinating to listen to. And so that was cool place. But the other memorable one was I remember just doing this awful job. It was just kitchen work really. And then a bit of waiting as well at a conference place just down the road from me. It was convenient. And I think it had just been a really horrible morning. I think I'd sort of... had I been out the night before? Maybe I had, or whatever, or I just hadn't slept. And I was just knackered and had to be there really early. I think I remember I spilt soup on someone's suit, on a suit, and they were quite peeved, and I was sent home a bit early. And I was like, oh, God. And... that morning was quite a significant one because I remember going home. My parents were away, and so I just sort of came back. I was sat in my house in my pants and a dressing gown, and just sort of fell asleep in front of the telly. And then I woke up, and something weird was happening because it was the channel I was watching. There was a news broadcast on, and the first plane had just gone into the Twin Towers.
Oh no!
And it was that, and it was sort of that really weird feeling. I'd just come to, and this was unfolding, and it was that real sort of, am I dreaming? Is this still a dream? Like a really lucid dream?
Yeah.
I had to come to, and my brain was piecing this all together. Oh, what's going on? And I'm sat in my parents' back room, and I'm sort of, and just sat there the whole day in my pants and a dressing gown, just like, what the fuck is going on here? And just watching the whole thing unfold. And and then parents calling up from France going, oh God, have you seen what's going on?
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah. And there you go. That's how I saw in the sort of latter part of this.
yeah. I remember being there. I was working at the Ministry of Fun when it happened, and
right.
Paula, who works there, turned the TV on and said, "Oh, look, something big's happening."
Yeah,
and everyone was confused as to what was going on, and then you just became so hooked, and just to see everything unfolding,
it was really surreal,
and just become slightly clearer as time went on as to what was happening. And
because of course it looked like an accident at first.
Yeah,
didn't
first
it?
of all,
really
terrible tragedy.
accident.
Planes just and then another one happens.
So watch that in real time, just watching that second one going. And it chills up my spine. I remember just feeling the shivers and going, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah. I remember feeling so bad because of just, relentless news coverage.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm going to take myself away from it. So I just went by myself to the cinema to see anything.
Yeah.
Just to get away from the TV and just to lock myself in a dark room. And I went to see Planet of the Apes, which was terrible. So
that one, yeah.
The Tim Burton one, which is just terrible. So I didn't feel any better. That could be a review for Planet of the Apes. Couldn't even make...
won't take your mind off 9/11.
Better.
Yeah. Jesus.
There you go.
But yeah, so... it's odd times. But anyway, we eventually moved to London. We set up this club. I started getting because I've been doing the open mic scene quite a bit, and I always think I'm quite lucky as a comedian as opposed to sort of just being an actor, because you're never really resting. Like if you're diligent, you can. And there were a lot less comics back then as well, and back then, Time Out would list every single comedy club that there was really in London, and it was a big thick tome back then that you had to buy from a shop.
Yes.
And they don't even list comedy now. It's a real shame.
Really?
They do it online, obviously, but they don't. Do they? They might not even do it online.
Does it still exist as a magazine?
Yeah, they hand it out at stations. It's almost a pamphlet now.
Oh no!
It's there's no comedy or cabaret in there anymore. It's but yeah, no, there would be. It would show all the comedy clubs, and there at the bottom of some of them it would say "interested acts, call this number," and it would have a landline on. It was simpler times. They were kind of, nowadays, crikey, I think you got month-long waiting lists even for open mic nights in London. I remember, so the stage time you can get is it's incredible, really. I mean, a lot of those early gigs you're not paid for, but you can be getting the stage time. You can be getting, especially in London, just significantly better in a short space of time, and getting that stage time in, or hopefully significantly better. There were still those perennial open micers that I imagine some are still sort of going to this day, of just the deluded open micers.
Oh, I've seen some bizarre open mic turns.
Yeah.
People who come on and just seem to vent a lot of anger at the world.
Sure. Yeah, it's probably the first time they've left the house that day.
Yeah.
They've pent it all up, and it's like they're releasing it.
Or at their ex-girlfriend.
Yes, I would imagine. Yeah, that's probably still going on. But I remember, they seem to be. I mean, there might be now on the circuit. They probably are in the open mic scene. But I remember there used to be a lot more characters, from what I remember, of just real borderline nut jobs, and kind of. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think I've listed them on other podcasts before, and the joys of that. This is not about that. This is the in-between bits, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's see. So when I was doing that, before I was sort of making a living out of the stand-up, I would actually. Well, this is where Ministry of Fun came into my life, I suppose. So, yeah. So Si had been working at Thorpe Park, I think, with Vicky Barklam.
Oh, the legend.
Lovely, legendary Vicky Barklam, and they'd been doing sort of stupid character stuff together there, and that's how he'd been making a wage. And then she said, "Oh, you got to come and see these guys, Ministry of Fun, and they'll sort you out." And lo and behold, they did. I got in with them. The first job I ever did for them. Well, actually, before I start on them. So before I got to know Ministry, there was actually a few other ones as well. I'd still do a little bit of bar work every now and again, but then there was the Whoopee Agency.
Yes, of course.
So
my ex-girlfriend used to run it.
That's right. And they would sort of they'd have gigs, but they would also every now and again call me up and go, "Got a bit of a weird one here."
Yeah.
And I'd go, "Great.
Right.
I've been a gorilla for 2 years. How weird can it be?" And the one that I remember was the most was it was a guy's 40th birthday, and it was in London Bridge in the Vaults before they were. What are they now? Oh, it's all just been opened up, hasn't it? It's all one big station now. But so when the sort of main bit now of London Bridge.
They were good, the underground.
They were brilliant.
Was it called Shunt? Gallery?
Shunt used to do a lot of stuff, yeah. So there were a lot of avant-garde, sort of arty things going on down there. I remember going to see a Shunt show and just walking down. I just saw someone coming towards me in the murky sort of darkness, and it was just a naked bloke covered in mud.
As you do.
Yeah. It was one of their performances. Yeah, they did some great stuff down there, sort of sensory based. So there was one about sleep that was very hypnotic and very anyway. But yeah, so there were cool spaces down there. And this guy, it was his 40th birthday. He had hired out the whole space, like the whole of the Vaults. He'd hired out, and he called it Richard the 40th. He obviously had sort of a dramatic bent to him. He was an interesting guy. He was like a sort of East End working class guy who'd done good. Who'd made a lot of his living from property. Yeah. And just went, "I've got more money than I ever thought I would have. Fuck it. It's my 40th. Yeah. This is what we're doing." And he'd sent out invitations to all his mates in there was a little skull in a box, and rolled up in the eye socket there was the invitation to the party. And the party involved, I mean, the party was insane. They had a big skull over. He was obviously considering his own mortality at 40. There was a theme, big skull over the bar, and the decor was incredible. Like there were live bands playing, and then DJs, and it was just. And I was living around the corner at the time in London Bridge, and so there were a bunch of other performers doing this as well, and they're all like, "Oh God, how are we going to get home?" Like last tube, and I was like, "Oh fuck it, we'll just come back to mine afterwards." So I sort of had the after party of someone else's party back at ours, and that was quite fun. But what we had to do was a bunch of actors were paid to dress up as various characters from his life, and a horse and cart was at the entrance of the vaults, and people were taken down this dark alleyway into the vault on a horse and cart into London Bridge Station. I can't even imagine how much this all would have cost. And so as the people went down this corridor, he wanted to have little alcoves of vignettes from his life.
Yeah.
So I think he'd been a stockbroker in the city. He'd done various sort of things like that. And I remember like some people, there were a couple who were ballroom dancers who'd been brought in who were wearing gas masks and World War, all the kit, and they would they were dancing, doing slow ballroom dancing wearing gas masks, which obviously represented his parents. There were they'd set up like a whole toilet cubicle, and there were two guys sat just trousers around their ankles reading the Financial Times. All this sort of stuff going on. Eerie child on a swing, just with green uplighting, and I had to. My role was I had to wear a jester's outfit on a 4-poster bed, rolling around, throwing Monopoly money about.
Fantastic.
And that was it. And I had to do that basically until I got the thumbs up and all the guests had come through, which was maybe like 45 minutes, an hour. And that was it. And then the guy spoke to us at the start, and it gave us all cash in envelopes.
Brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And just when I went, thank you so much for doing this. It's like, you're paying me cash to lie on a bed and lob money about. But he was so like grateful. He's such a nice guy. And he just, I was absolute salt of the earth. Like one of these people who just never knew he would have this much money and was just like, fuck it. And just said, look, and obviously like when you're done, like, come and join us for drinks in the bar. It's a free bar, like best drinks from all over the world. Come and have fun there, and keep your costumes on. So everyone was just partying, and like, I assume the guys in the toilets pulled their trousers up.
So they fall over probably. Yeah,
but we all did just that and went and got on it.
There were gigs like that you get sometimes. They're just amazing.
Brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah.
And there was another one, similar costume. I don't know why they sort of handpicked me for this, but it was some event. I can't remember what the event was, but there were presenters, politicians, sports stars. It was quite a big event, and 4 of us had to dress up as harlequins and prance about the place, wordlessly offering canapes to all these people. I remember just like prancing up to Des Lynam in a really theatrical way, offering him a canapé, and he just went, no. No, thanks, you're right. And it reminded me of that. Do you remember that Spinal Tap scene with the mimes?
Oh yes,
all kind of miming the eating.
It's actually Billy Crystal. And,
it is Billy Crystal.
The other mime is Dana Carvey from Wayne's World.
Well, good. I knew you have great knowledge. Well, bravo. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, come on, mime is money. Come on,
mime is money. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
it just reminded me of that. Yeah. It's brilliant. And it was me, Tom Nelstrop, Lexi Bradburn, and Game of Thrones' Gemma Whelan.
I know Gemma.
Yes, lovely Gemma Whelan. Where is she now?
Last time I saw her was in a cafe in Dulwich.
Oh, was it now?
She's a neighbour.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, she lives down that way. So
So
no, she doesn't. Like, to any Game of Thrones stalkers, she doesn't live down that way anymore. She's moved. But yeah, that was fun. So that was utterly ridiculous. That was all of us just going, oh my God, what are we doing? This is brilliant.
Yeah.
And before pre-Ministry of Fun, there were a few sort of little weird ones like that again kind of eased me into it.
Yeah.
But my first Ministry of Fun job, I remember this. It was me and Matt Grist.
Oh, Gristy.
Gristy was working. Who else was on it? I think it was Alan Dewig and a few of the old sort of
old team.
The old team, and we had to go up to Hull and we had to spray paint a logo onto walls, street corners, pavement with supposedly water-soluble paint, although we were a bit dubious about it. And
I seem to remember this.
Yeah, it was for what was it? It was Celeb in the City. There we go.
That's
I don't know how I remember
one.
that.
Yeah.
Did you do it as well?
No, I was probably the organizer. I can't remember. Or maybe I did a video on it or something.
Maybe.
I remember something about it.
So it was a radio station where there was some sort of giveaway where you had to be, you got to be a celeb in Hull for a day.
Celeb for a day in Hull.
It was a bit right. I can't remember what that entailed, but it was
probably opening a chippy or something.
It wasn't going to make Vanity Fair anytime.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the thing. We just had to spray paint their logo with Celeb in the City just all around the place. And the brief was this: do it until you get stopped.
Yeah.
Do it until you get told off and told to go home. And it did not last long. I think it was maybe an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe an hour. And the council bloke, word got round, someone came and went, don't do that. We went, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we took our per diems and we went to the pub.
Brilliant.
And that was that. And what an in, it's like, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, an hour's work. Yeah.
Thanks, Vicky Barkham. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with the right people.
Yeah.
And so the floodgates opened after that, the amount of ridiculous jobs I did after that. I mean, going back to the costumes, this is one. This is I dressed as a giant meerkat.
Yes, I was with you.
Yes! You
'Cause
were.
I was-
Me and Scouse, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. And I was filming it and
Yes.
driving the van.
Of course you were.
Yes,
Yes,
so I
you
followed
were.
you guys round.
That's right.
From Meerkat Manor.
Do you remember? Yeah. So do you remember
Yes.
the crazy Newcastle woman?
No, what?
So I remember this one because we had to go.
It's starting to ring a bell.
It was all around the north, wasn't it? Because we had to go and get a photo by the Angel of the North
That's right.
for a bit of the footage as well. And I just remember in Newcastle city centre we had to basically these meerkats were about, what would you say, like 7 foot?
Yeah, big old meerkat.
Yeah. So the head of the meerkat, it was for a TV programme, wasn't it?
Yeah, Meerkat Manor.
That's right. Yeah. And so the head of them, like our heads stopped where the meerkat head started. So,
your kind of eyes were in the chest, weren't they? So you could see through a little grill.
That's
in the
right.
chest.
And we were almost top heavy. Like those heads were really heavy.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really turn a corner quickly or you'd be on your ass. And I just remember us scampering about, and I think we got the movements pretty damn well, personally. Anyway, and we were scampering about, popping our heads up and sort of that hurt quite a lot, trying to pop your head up when it weighed a ton and was seriously affecting your centre of balance. But there was this one woman, a very drunken woman in Newcastle town centre, who took a shine to us and came up and just tried to hug us, but it was more of a rugby tackle.
Yeah.
And just that, I think you had to step in a little bit, but there was you, drunk woman, and two wobbling meerkats, and it got a bit hairy. Pardon the pun, but it was so that was quite a fun one. I remember another dress up when the gorillas on the bus. I think you did this, didn't you?
Yeah.
So that was for Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong, yeah.
And going into town, London town, all dressed as gorillas. We were given gorilla costumes, and we were told to
embellish them, weren't we?
That's right.
With different
gorilla
what were you?
accoutrements. I went for Hawaiian gorilla, Hawaiian
nice.
surf gorilla.
Yeah.
That's what I went for. They just said, wear whatever you want over it, and I had like just Hawaiian shirt.
I was ninja
flowers.
gorilla.
Yes,
I got a samurai sword and the
lovely
Japanese headband and
great. I remember David Chambers was kind of a bit of a Monty Python woman,
yes,
sort of gorilla, sort of floral hat, and. And that was fun. And so, we had to run about, didn't we? And then sort of go up and down escalators. Riding around on the top of a open top double decker
I think it was
as
about
well.
20 of us. About 20,
That's right.
20 differently dressed gorillas.
Yeah. And it was
randomly going around London.
Yeah, it was very odd. I mean, it got a very good response. I remember people were quite happy to see 20 gorillas.
Yeah, you're going to be, are you? Walk through London and see 20 gorillas in various outfits. You're going to be like, yeah, well, great.
That was fun. And I mean, there was one quite odd one for Ministry because it didn't involve that much dressing up or anything. It was me and Dave. This is how I met David Chambers actually, and it was the two of us going around tooting, and we had to literally tooting. I think in a van. We had to. Oh no, we didn't beep at them, but we had to. It was for a youth centre, and we had to go and find disaffected youth. So it's like these guys in there. How old were we? Like late 20s, I think, just sort of going around tooting.
A bizarre kind of brief to be given.
Finding youths and giving them cards for
I
this
say youth
disaffected. Yeah, it was a bit like if we'd have been much older, it would have been slightly dodgy. I think.
You would,
just like, well, youth. Do you
want to come to my youth club?
Take this car. We've got a youth club going.
Yeah.
So that was
ping pong and everything.
Yeah. So we had to do that into this new, not leisure centre, youth centre. That was quite odd. The one that I did the most probably was the 118 one, but then that ran forever, didn't it?
Yeah, that was a long one. So yeah, obviously you would.
I made so much money out of that. We did that so many times. The Christmas ones alone, where we would just get sent out because there'd be two of us going around in a van.
I mean, it was so big. I mean, they don't really do it anymore, do they? Or do they?
I think it's still a thing.
Because I don't really watch TV anymore.
No, I think it's still going. Someone told me the other day it's still going because I was just like, I was really surprised.
Yeah.
Who's still using 118?
118. Yeah.
But people are. I guess there's some people who don't
still doing
have
the ads.
The internet yet. And
there's still the two guys. Because obviously, anyone listening who doesn't remember, the 118 ads featured two live runners in a kind of 70s sort of style.
Yeah.
Headbands, things. And they just kind of run around places. And
it was when the 0800, the free phone.
Yeah, it changed.
Yeah, it was. No, what did it used to be?
It used to be 192, didn't it?
Yes,
and that was directory inquiries.
Directory inquiries, yeah.
There was only one number.
That's right.
Because there was only one directory inquiries.
That's
and
right.
then there was, then they sort of deregulated it.
Yeah.
And there was lots, and first there was loads of companies.
And so many
competing.
rip-offs.
Yeah. And then eventually it kind of settled down to be just a few.
Well, 118 wasn't cheap.
Probably not.
I don't think it was the cheapest by any means, but they just
seemed to have the best advertising.
Yeah, that ran for years. I think they might still do it in between in ad breaks. I think they might still have the little idents. I don't know, but anyway. So, and in fact, a friend of ours did that for many years, didn't he? He was
Tom Bell.
Yeah. Tom was a woman that go on the telly and got a huge wad of money out of that. So they were doing all right. Very odd, but yeah. So we just had to run around the place and get recognised. I mean, I think in the early days we had to go and give hand things out to people. I think we did, like just telling people
about stickers and things.
Yeah,
like that, yeah,
but really, like it was just. No, you just had to be around so people recognise you.
Be spotted, yeah.
So it was quite well paid as well, and we basically just get a bit of exercise out of it. We would go for a jog. We put on our little red shorts and the vests and it got a bit bracing in winter, didn't it? I remember, Jesus, because you couldn't wear anything underneath. You had to the look
the outfit,
was bare legs and bare arms.
Yeah.
So we'd be running like the wind, like for those winter ones. I remember poor old Liam Yates, he nearly got hypothermia, I think, from doing it. He was a very wiry man. But, yeah, it was... so, like you'd have to sort of just run around the place, sit down for lunch in a cafe, just stay in costume, say hello to people. Hello, 118, hello, little sort of British airman voices. And, yeah, that ran for ages. And I remember there was... this is quite a fun one. I was out. It was a mate's birthday in Old Street at a place called the Aquarium, which I think it's still going. And we were sort of doing a 118 job, and I don't think I had time to go home. And I was like, I'm just going to go straight from the job to this, and it was like a 70s themed night. So I just went, oh, sod it, I'll just go straight from the job, and just went. went there in the 118 gear, which I think it was sort of the early days of doing it. So I think it was such a thing that after a while, costume shops would start stocking. Like, that's how successful a campaign it was.
Yeah,
mad, wasn't it?
People would dress up as those guys, go to parties.
That's right.
As costume.
But it was sort of just before that all started happening. So I'd sort of turn up, and this was like, everyone knew the 118 ad. So they'd just turn up to this 70s club in this gear. And I was like, there's got people buying me like free drinks.
Brilliant.
And the Aquarium, there's a swimming pool in there. And I remember just sort of, going in just my pants and the wig and the tash and the headbands, just splashing like some sort of
70s sort
like
porn film.
Yeah, basically like a bloody Playboy mansion party. And I remember copping off that night as well.
Hey.
There was this American woman. It was the last night in town, and just like
it's the power of the
didn't
costume.
even get the reference, but was like, who is this guy who seems to have this magnetism and just like and everyone buying free drink, and it was just absolutely ridiculous. And I was some mates the other week taking the piss out of me about that. Just like, do you remember that time you sort of copped off as the 118 man at the party? That was weird, wasn't it? It was really weird. Anyway, so there was that. So thank you.
Thank you, 118. Yeah.
I mean, there was one where I wore even less than that. I had to be a Portuguese dancer in just cowboy boots and pants. And I had to go and do that in like a couple of public spaces. I can't remember what it was. Just dancing to sort of Latino music. Really odd. Can't remember what that was advertising.
Yeah.
But I did this for quite a few years, and I just sort of then there was a time when I was making a decent amount out of comedy, and just sort of didn't. I would sort of do the occasional job for Ministry, but not that many. And I just remember, like, there was also a time where my mate Millsy texted me saying, mate, I've just been to Charing Cross Station. There's a bloke dressed as a pair of bollocks. It's not you, is it?
Yeah.
And I went, oh yeah, it's probably time to stop.
Yeah,
People
start thinking that's
you. It was not me. I categorically deny that it was me. But no, so I've been very lucky, really. I sort of, God bless Ministry of Fun for all the wonderful years of fun. I've done sort of weird jobs, but I can't say I've done that many sort of terrible jobs.
Sort of hard graft jobs.
No, not really. I've lived quite
great,
a charmed life, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I've never dressed as a pair of bollocks.
No, not yet.
Not yet. That's still to come.
There's there could be hard times ahead.
Yeah, that's when the work dries up. And, Brexit kicks in. No one wants a Frenchman anymore. And,
yeah.
Anyone got a bollock suit?
Yeah, we want some good old British bollocks. That's what we want.
Good old British knackers.
Yeah. At what point did you decide to kind of knock doing extra jobs on the head and focus like mainly on the comedy?
When I started making enough money out of it, I suppose. Yeah. I sort of my big break, I suppose, was the Edinburgh Fringe, really. So it was I started on the UK circuit sort of. Well, I started properly doing it from 2003. Yeah, 2003 was when I was sort of coming to London doing open mic gigs, and then if you don't count the sort of couple of years of doing sketch comedy as a student, but I went up. My first ever Edinburgh Fringe was 98 actually, and that was with a drama group that was doing a drum and bass version of The Tempest.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was on at midnight at the Bedlam Theatre, and it was 2 weeks in Edinburgh, and it was basically had a sort of dance soundtrack. It was a contemporary. Yeah. It was kind of like it sort of had a New Labour theme to it, and sort of it had a little bit of a twist. I mean, it wasn't great.
There was always, you've got to Edinburgh, there's always kind of a plethora of contemporary versions of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I remember walking down the street there, and a very earnest student, probably about 16, 17, was giving out leaflets, and she stopped this lady and was going, "Oh, we're doing this play. It's a modern of King," and she was talking. "Have you heard of this? It's by Shakespeare, and it's called King Lear." And this lady was going to be very, very polite. "Oh, yeah, I know Shakespeare." It was Maureen Lipman she was talking to. Not clue.
Wow.
She just stopped Maureen Lipman in the street.
You heard of this Shakespeare?
You heard of this Shakespeare chap?
Oh, that's great.
Oh dear! I remember being at the Edinburgh Festival, and it was a ministry job, and we were giving out ice cream. And I was a character called Captain Coconut.
Right.
And I two of my best jokes, fell flat. I was walking down the street, and there's a big queue of people for the ticket office.
Yeah.
And because we were giving out ice creams in the centre of town, I had a fridge on a trolley. And I saw this queue of people, mostly Americans, and I said, "Excuse me, is this the Edinburgh Fringe Festival?"
Lovely.
Nobody got it.
They're
just flat.
Deserve more.
No, and then later on, I was giving out ice creams, and this guy came up, obviously from Shakespeare. He was dressed as Julius Caesar.
Smashing.
And I said, "You can't have one." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because you've ate two, haven't you, Brute?"
Oh.
And you know what? He just looked at me confused. I thought, come on, Shakespeare joke.
I'm going to give you a slightly longer clap for that. I mean,
he wasn't getting it. I was going, "You've ate two, Brute." And he was like, "Oh."
I hope all his reviews were 1 star.
Yeah.
Actually, that was back then in Edinburgh. That was when they had a thing called the Page of Shame.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was. We weren't quite on it. We got a 2-star review, but it was in the Scotsman newspaper, and it was all the shows that they deemed not even good enough for a 1-star review.
Yeah,
and it was dropped after a few complaints, but it was it was a funny read. Like, it was just these journalists absolutely just pouring bile onto the page of something they hated so much that had taken up an hour of their life.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, you're stuck there and you go to a show and sometimes it's in such a small venue that you can't escape.
Well, the ministers used to go up quite a lot. I think James would go up quite a bit, and a lot of folks from there would go up, and they did this brilliant thing where they would sort of all pick
a random thing.
Yeah, did you go up as well?
Oh, yeah, I did that. I went to see some very earnest play.
So you flick through the programme, right?
Flick through,
and go, right, you're going to see that.
Literally with a pin. You pick
it's brilliant.
And I remember, me and James both went to see very small theatre productions that were very kind of worthy. And Andy was happy he got to see some bonkers Russian clown.
Yeah, yeah.
Julian, however, went to basically somebody's house. And it was, so there's only 2 rows of seats, and they shut the doors behind them, and he was on the front row, and it was this small production.
Yeah, but it's front or back row, wasn't it? That's the choice.
I didn't know what it was about because he just put the pin in the programme,
right.
And it was just called J-Men.
Right.
Okay, and so this music started, this kind of Japanese Eastern music.
Oh yeah.
And this guy came out in like an old sort of samurai outfit, doing like beautiful movements to the music, and this voiceover said, apparently the love for the samurai is pure, and then this other samurai came out and doing a dance, and then this banging music suddenly kicked in. And they ripped off the robes, and this voice shouted, "And now, J-Men present Naked Dance!" And suddenly, Julian's on the front row, and he said he'd got this troop of Japanese strippers on, like, literally just standing on him. And that's what he picked at random.
Oh, that's amazing.
Naked Dance!
That's amazing.
And he came out quite shaken. I remember getting a text. I came out of my play and I got a text from Julian. He said, I need to drink.
Did he have a newfound respect for the samurai?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. The fear of the samurai.
Yeah, it's striking terror into the hearts of Edinburgh.
They got new
goers.
tactics.
Yeah.
That's quite special.
Yeah.
Oh God, but I love it. So that was my sort of 98 was my love affair with Edinburgh Fringe, starting at all the craziness that it entails. But yeah, so I sort of when was that? So it's 2008, I suppose, was my first foray up there, and it just kind of doing my history of swearing show, and then
of course, that was a
kind of really took off from then actually. So yeah, it was around that point that I started making money out of it. For swearing. I remember I went to see that show in Edinburgh. Right,
A brief history of swearing.
Yeah, that's right. In the little, what was it? It was called something else. It's the Nicol Edwards now. No, it was the Nicol Edwards. It's called the Banshee Labyrinth now.
Oh, right.
But yeah, Nicol Edwards, the banqueting hall or something is what it was called. And it was a dripping, plague-ridden back room. But yeah, a lot of fun. Good for a swearing show.
So now do you find yourself, it's all comedy now? Or...
Yeah, I'm sort of trying to do a little bit of acting here and there, but it's mainly comedy. Yeah, as I say, just sort of 10 years of doing the Frenchie, and so I'm taking the show around, the latest show around quite a bit. Doing what am I doing in January? Waterman's in Brentford. I'm doing the Little Theatre in Hebden Bridge, which will be a lot of fun with the band. So I'm just finding sort of new things to do with Marcel all the time. It's like his 10th year. He's got to have a band, doesn't he? Yeah, of course he's got to have a band. And I loved that. I really enjoyed working with musicians. I think most comics are sort of in awe of good musicians. And actually I think a lot of musicians are in awe of good comics as well. You sort of see it at gigs, don't you? Them sort of the little patter in between. Yeah. It's like you wanted to be a comic, didn't you? Yeah.
It's true. It's always like the grass is always greener.
That's right.
Everyone wants to do everyone else's job. Think,
Yeah.
You know.
But no, we are coming up to Christmas season now. That's going to be that's an interesting time for a comic. Let's see.
Do you get like lots of private sort of bookings?
Yeah, I quite like the private bookings. I think people often fear corporates a little bit.
Yeah.
But as Marcel, it's actually quite bulletproof because I don't have this reverence towards the company.
Yeah.
I do it with the same sort of insouciance and laissez-faire attitude that I would do in a club gig, really. And it seems to work. And I think sort of I've got a few cabaret corporates coming up, which is they're always quite fun.
Yeah.
People get really dressed up for them, and it's like it doesn't feel like work. It's great. But it pays you a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's also a bit of a danger season as well. You do get the occasion, I remember, there was one, a couple of years ago, it was just awful. It was in this little basement venue, and it, like half of the audience, probably even more actually, were just these estate agents on the Christmas night out.
Yeah.
So, chances are there was a little bit more than alcohol being involved there. Mm-hmm. And, it was genuine cold. That wasn't me doing a line. Oh, God. I'm a bit ill. Anyway. And that was horrible because they were sort of all up the back as well. So they were just making, it was awful. They were just making so much noise and being dicks. And I could just see the people on the front rows just like giving me this look of like, oh God, all rolling their eyes. It's like, I know there's nothing you can do. And, it wasn't one of the places that wasn't big enough to have a bouncer in or anything like that.
No.
So they were just taking over. And I remember I just sort of, it was quite a teacherly thing. I think I must have picked this up. I don't know where I got it from, but I'd sort of, instead of like raising my voice to try and counter the dickheads at the back, I think I even took the mic away and just spoke really slowly and quietly to the people in the front row. So the people at the back just couldn't hear. And actually, that was when the gig turned. They really loved it on the front row. And it was like such a fuck you to the guys at the back. And they got into it. Then they got more angry at the back that they couldn't hear the thing they were already shouting over.
Faults. Yeah.
I just started leaving. Oh, fucking what? Can't even hear it. It's like, no, you can't.
No, yeah. Got
See
rid
ya.
of you. Yeah.
That was quite fun.
Yeah, you do get those. I've been to gigs sometimes where groups of people, it's usually groups of like middle-aged men, just decided it's fine just to talk over everything.
Yeah, groups of people are awful.
Yeah.
No, but Christmas is a special time.
The office party.
I swear it must be the spirit of Halloween left over. The evil spirits are still dormant and fueled by alcohol and then awakened by Christmas booze. And,
You see all at the office parties. I've done a few as like DJs or compers and stuff. And then forget me and my mate Tim Newton doing a Tesco's Christmas party.
Right.
There's this character called Barry Cheese and his jungle party. We had this bizarre jungle props and stuff. I don't know why. But I just remember all this. It was this drunken conversation these two guys from Tesco were having with this girl, and both were trying to impress her. And one was going, I was going to be a professional footballer, but I got an injury. But I'm thinking about now maybe like retraining. Now my injury's better and going to America, and and
blah, blah, blah,
I didn't always want to work behind the meat counter at Tesco. You see, I've still got my dreams. And then clearly this other guy was stood there thinking, oh, this is outdoing me. I haven't got. So he said, well, actually, I'm thinking of becoming a marine biologist.
Of course, yeah. Good luck. They probably are.
They probably are. But
probably are.
It's those drunken end of night conversations that you get to witness because you're working there. You're sober.
You're the sober.
And you're sort of looking at, and you see people descending into this drunken.
You're like the ghost of Christmas past, just like filtering through and watching,
seeing what's going on.
I remember there was quite a hairy one. The gig was fine, but it was getting back. I think we were sort of Tring or Hemel Hempstead, that sort of those. Me and Tony Law trying to get back from this gig, and the trains were just getting cancelled one after the other, and it was like, well, hopefully the final train back to London will be all right. And it's like, no, that's cancelled, and so everyone on the platform was getting quite peeved and a bit shuffly and a bit like, oh shit, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And a girl just goes, oh, I know what this is. She goes, it's the Rail Network's office party tonight. They're all out on the piss.
So the train people.
Yeah.
There you go.
So we all went, really? She goes, yeah, know exactly what's going on. So she made a phone call and just got everyone taxis. Right. And it was awesome. So we all just kind of like this like 250 quid cab fare back into London, and it's just like, oh yeah, nice one. All right.
Brilliant.
The right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we've almost been chatting for an hour, would you believe?
Ooh!
And so I always like to ask people if they've got any kind of advice or sage words of wisdom or things for people doing what you do.
Well,
and how to get through life.
Well, you've got to have those sort of the sort of down moments, haven't you? For the up moments to be worth it. And you've got to remember as well, like when you're doing what you do on the stage, when you're up there and you're doing what you've always wanted to do, presumably, then you're lucky to be doing that. It's you might not feel it when you're doing the sort of menial tasks, but that's sort of, you have to go through that to get the highs of performing and of the adulation of the crowd, and then back to dressing as a pair of bollocks next day. But there's far worse things that you could be doing, and I think you have to just sort of remind yourself of that. And I think just perseverance usually, not always obviously, but it usually pays off. It's usually, you put the graft in, you would like to think people recognise it, and if you genuinely sort of have the skill, then you'll eventually get there. And you'll be doing something you enjoy, and also, like, nowadays there are sort of, well, things like this. This is what I love about podcasts is that it's something that anyone can do anywhere. And if you find your audience, you might think you're doing something, ridiculously niche, or you've got something that just no one else is interested in. And lo and behold, you put it out there. The internet's out there. You can put it out there.
People love it,
and people love it.
It's a great thing about podcasts. There's so many niche podcasts now because we're sat in your kitchen.
Yeah.
A couple of microphones. You don't need a studio now to make it. Anyone can make a podcast.
Yeah.
And it could be about anything. It could be about like booze and knitting, whatever.
Exactly.
And somebody will think, oh, that's exactly what I want to listen to,
But also often those experiments pay off. Like I say, the Marcel was only ever a strange little experiment that I did in a basement underneath a backpackers hostel, and now I've taken them all over the world. I'm going back to New Zealand and Australia next year, and it's ridiculous. It's something it's a thing that I never thought would take off as much as it had, and it doesn't seem to be showing any sign of slowing down. And go with it. Go with what you want to do. Don't try and sort of be someone else's ideal of what you think they think you should be.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
But it's like I put on I'm a big fan of the band Half Man Half Biscuit.
Oh God, yeah. Legends.
Absolute legends.
Yeah, come on.
But I put on a thing a few years ago in Edinburgh that was a benefit show for Shelter. It was just and I did it as a charity gig. I just thought it was a pay what you want venue in Edinburgh. I put on a load of comedians just doing with bands just doing their favourite Half Man Half Biscuit track. And I was like, let's see how this goes. I like them. I know they're sort of a bit of a cult band. I have no idea. Like maybe like 20 people, 30 people turn up, and it was 150 seater venue, and we were turning people away. Wow! And it was amazing. It was just like, and it's like, oh right, oh yeah. You never know, do you?
No, you just don't know what's going to be popular.
I think it was on at like 3 p.m.
Yeah.
In this little, actually no, it was a cool space. Actually, it was the Voodoo Rooms, which is lovely. Voodoo Rooms.
Oh yeah,
ballroom.
Yeah.
Really nice space, but still had no idea. It was a one-off thing. Like, I don't think I'd sort of. Was it in the main? Yeah, I put it in the main programme, but I hadn't done there's no advertising for it, just a few posters here, haven't there? And most people obviously were ardent fans who turned up, but I was just like, out of interest, is there anyone here who sort of didn't know what this was? And like 2 hands go up, just like, I don't know, just like the title.
Yeah.
It was called Some Men All Biscuit.
Brilliant.
And I just wanted to see what it was.
Yeah,
at the end of the show, did you enjoy it? I was like, yeah, we're going to look at all their albums and like this, yeah. So, just, follow your weird dreams.
Follow your strange dreams. Well, that's a good bit of advice to end the show on. So, well, thank you ever so much, Alexis, for joining us. I know you're going back to dash off now, so...
I'm off to Brussels. I'm off to digging in Brussels.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right, well, good luck with that.
Eurostar.
Hey, and thanks for joining us on While I Was Resting.
Thanks very much.
While I Was Resting. Next week on While I Was Resting, I'll be chatting to Doctor Who star Sophie Aldred.